Hi everyone, thanks so much for joining me again. I'm going to be discussing Godox's new range of flashes. Now I will be talking a lot about Fuji cameras, but a lot of what I'm saying applies to all the different brands. Very exciting news is that Godox has released a full range of flash setups with full TTL and high-speed sync for Fuji cameras. And as you all know, those who shoot Fuji cameras, this has been a real big gripe for most photographers, is that they're having to use different ways, different means of getting to the results that they want, but they really are workarounds. They were never really easy straight off the bat stuff. You know, a lot of manual control, using ND filters, using triggers above triggers to try and get different brands of flashes to work with your system. So it's been a bit tricky. Now, I've been a Godox user for a number of years now. I've been using the 850 speedlight flash and the 860 speedlight flash, but it's full manual control. It's within my sync speed, all the different things that come with it, and using ND filters. As well as the off-camera system. I was using the AD360 flash, and before that the AD180 flash. Obviously I've given a lot of the Chinese manufacturers a lot of grief over the years. You know, the presumption is that they're very good at copying stuff, but they're not very good at innovating. Now I've really got to take my hat off to Godox. They are innovators. They've surpassed a lot of the European manufacturers, and even in the United States, where a lot of those countries are now selling their product as the top product. A lot of, you know, Godox is not known as Godox all around the world. A lot of it's just been rebranded, but they're effectively the same flash. I know a lot of people know Flashpoint, Evolve, Bolt, and all those different brands. They're all the same thing. They all come out of the Godox factory. First flash I want to talk about is their speed lights. I use the whole system. I use speed lights through to off-camera flash and triggers and so on. Very importantly is that I have a good speed light, because as much as my work depends on off-camera flash and natural light, there's a lot of situations where you need to be able to shoot reportage on the go, fast-paced stuff, but you need a flash on the camera. And again, it was all manually controlled. Now it's full TTL. So the new flash is called the V860iiF, which meaning Fuji. Obviously you get Sony, Canon, Nikon, all the different brands as well. Very importantly is you no longer have to buy a trigger for your off-camera flash, because the speed light itself has a built-in master-slave unit combination. Really cool about it is that you can turn this flash off, as you can with other brands, but this is really newly implemented to Godox. You can turn off your flash and have just the channels running. So no flash comes from here. It's on top of your camera, but you're fully controlling your off-camera flashes from this unit. Where before, you know, I would have to use the X1T trigger. I still bought this, by the way, the Fuji version. But nice to know that I have that combination where I don't have to duplicate, put flashes on top of triggers and so on and so forth, and then day after shoots, more personal portrait setups, I can just use this trigger without this. Wedding days where I have to go quickly between off camera and on camera, I can use this as a trigger. So very, very cool. This is what I was previously using. I was using the Wistros, the Godox A360 flash. Very cool flash. A couple of drawbacks: it has a battery attached to it with a strap, a little bit more cumbersome to carry, but a lot of power. You know, a lot of my shots have been done at 1/4 power, 1/2 power, even 1/8, 1/16. Very seldom having to go into full power, so my recycle times are good. And yeah, very happy with this flash, and it's served me very well. Prior to that, I was using the 180, also a good flash, also a consideration for those shooting, but you find your recycle times, especially if you're competing with the sun, just fell behind a bit. You know, you're having to shoot at sort of full power, half power the whole time. Battery consumption, all those different considerations. I think probably the most exciting flash that Godox has released is the AD200. Very cool about this is that the flash is not designated to the brand of camera, it's the trigger. So whatever trigger you use will work with this flash. It's a 200 watt second flash, good power, not nearly going to be enough for me compared to what I was using before with the AD360. So yeah, this is kind of how I've gone about using the flash and what my ideas on the flash are. Very cool feature about this flash is you have a choice between a Fresnel head and the bare bulb, like you'd find on the AD360. I don't find that I'm going to be having to use this very much as a one flash setup, and I'll tell you why in a sec. But when I get into the reception, get into events, the Fresnel head comes back on, and I've actually even combined it with the mag mod setup. So this would just go straight on the flash, and then you can obviously put any modifier you want on that. But because I'm using the actual flash mostly as an off-camera flash module, I actually went and purchased the AD200. Now, quite funny is that when I actually looked at these flashes when I started, I was thinking, how am I going to combine two of these? Because this is what I need. I can't use the AD200 by itself. How am I going to get the two of them together to give the power I need? So I was already starting to invent reflectors where I could put two of these into a mounting system where they could both fire. But anyway, Godox was ahead of me, luckily, came to my rescue, and they created this B2. So what this effectively does is it actually connects two AD200s on the back and allows two bulbs to be fired off those two packs, which is really cool. So you would stick in the bulb. You see on the back here you've got 1 and 2, so flash 1, flash 2, and that corresponds with 1 port, 2 port. Now it's actually got 3 ports. It's got 1, 1, and 2. Now I'll explain to you what that is in a sec, but if you were to just put your 2 bulbs in, take this one out of here. Got to be so careful with these bulbs. I'm always so nervous fiddling with them. That's why I like to keep them in one place and take them out as little as possible, but that's effectively how it works. So when you put in a power unit into number 1, it fires 1. When you put it into 2, it fires 2. But it gave the option, which is really cool, and I think this is where a lot of the misinformation about this flash came about. It gave the option of being able to take one bulb and stick it in the middle. Now the wrong information was that you could stick the 8360 bulb in here and fire it off the 2-pack, giving it the power it needs to fire a bigger bulb. But that's not the case at all. You can't even really get the 8060 bulb in here. This is designed for the same bulb, and that's why they've labeled it 1 and the middle one 1 as well. So what you'd be doing on this is that you would stick your bulb in to the middle. You would put 1 pack on the back and you'd put it into 1 because it corresponds with 1. But now you've got even light. Because if you were to use this bulb higher up and you're using a small reflector, it's closer to the one side than the other. It's going to give you uneven light. So that's all it's for. So the information of this being for a bigger bulb is incorrect. It's still a 2 bulb setup or a 1 bulb setup, same bulb if you're using 1 pack on the back. So just to clarify that. So the actual heads are easily attached. There's one, and they're very sturdily attached, so you can be confident walking around with it. But the one thing I will tell you, and this is maybe a slight negative, is that this space between the 2 flashes concerns me big time. If this takes a sudden hard knock when my assistant turns, it hits something on the side of it, that space there might create a little bit of that sort of leverage on it might create either the head cracks or the flash gets damaged itself. So what I've done is I've actually stuck a spacer in between. So I've taken rubber and I've shoved it in between, and I've just taken a strap and strapped it on so that I know that when this takes an impact, the impact goes right through both heads. But that's entirely up to you, and it's just something small. Very cool about this head is not only is it a bare bulb flash head, it's an LED light head as well. So when you turn on the flash, all right, you have the option to turn on a light. So there's 1, there's 2. So you've got 2 LED lights. So you can, it's not really a modeling light, but it will give you an idea of what your sort of, what your modifier kind of does, the sort of shape that you're getting on the face and things like that. But most importantly for me is I use it as an LED. So when I'm in low light environments and I'm shooting a bride getting ready, or I'm shooting guys at a bar having cigars and drinks, sometimes flash just kills those situations. It's nice just to be able to bump up your ISO, but get that natural light in and just fill in a little bit of LED light. So here you have 3 power of lights. So there's 1, 2, 3, and then you do the same on the other side. And now you have full LED power, which is pretty impressive. Not as powerful as sort of one of those banks that you can get, but certainly very useful. The one negative thing about this flash unit is the reading on the back. It's not very clear. It's hard to read in high light situations. So when you're out in bright sun, not easy to read it. What I do find is when you do turn on the LED light, even just one like that, just the first setting, it brightens it up. So it acts as both a brightening of the back. So when you've got a single Fresnel head on this or a single bare bulb head on one unit, that light button is used to brighten your display and makes perfect sense. But when it gets used on this device, it effectively is used to control the LED and this. So if you're battling to see it and you push the button to get a brighter reading on the back, it turns on your LED as well. Then you just got to quickly run through it until it turns off, quickly run through it until it turns off, but you've at least got a brighter display on the back. Hopefully that makes sense to you guys. Just something else to point out about the AD200, besides this being hard to read in bright light. These buttons get hit very easily. So when you're using with the ADB2, let's just say, for example, your trigger is set up with A, B, C, D, whether you're using the flash or you're using the trigger, that's how it would be set up. So on the flash, what you would do is you would set M, which is main flash. You would turn that off, so you wouldn't have a flash share anymore. You would set A to TTL, and then you'd go set these two on the B2 to TTL. So effectively, it's sending a TTL signal to two of them, and it works out your exposure for you. Now, what I was finding is that with my assistant getting in and out of vehicles, moving around, this button got knocked. And as soon as you knock it, it changes from A to B or B to C. Now whatever your flash setting is on B and C, that's what's going to be outputted. But most of the time, those are turned off. So now B, if it jumps to B and one flash is on A, only one flash is getting a TTL signal, not both. So your flash power is reduced, because suddenly I was shooting, it's like, wow, I should be getting more than this. Is there something wrong? And looking in the bright light, trying to see the screen, only to realize it had been knocked. And I didn't actually know how long it had been knocked for. So just to bear that in mind. So what I would suggest, if you're shooting TTL with these things, off-camera flash together combined with the B2, just on your trigger and on your flash, set A to TTL, set B to TTL, set C to TTL, set D to TTL, and so on. So it doesn't matter what group it gets knocked to. It's still going to be TTL. It's a double knock for the channel, so that's not an issue. It's just a single knock for the group. So just make sure they're all TTL, and it doesn't matter if it gets knocked, you're still sending the same signal to the flash. So that's just one little piece of advice I'd give. Incredibly useful flash, has worked really well for me. Full TTL, high-speed sync worked flawlessly up to 0.008 of a second. It's great that it's got the same sort of setup where it's using lithium batteries. This lasted me the whole day. I think towards the end of the evening, when I was using these as separate lights around the reception, I was having to change out. So I would recommend, if you're going to be shooting a whole day with this, maybe get a spare battery each, but you'll very seldom have to use it. Even for the most intensive flash shooters, it does hold charge well. It takes a bit of time to charge it, so just bear that in mind as well. It could be a 2 to 3 hour charge on a battery, maybe even longer. I should have actually timed it, but I didn't, but it felt a little bit longer than normal. But that's because it is storing a lot of energy. But great flash. I went and bought the slightly larger reflector. So this is larger than the one you would get on the AD360 flash. So this is used when you're using a single bulb flash with one setup. You'd be using this, or any modifier you want really from Godox. But this is the S mount. This is the Bowens mount setup. It's a nice big reflector. It has to travel in my main bag when I travel, and yeah, so it gives you a really good spread of light. It doesn't come with a diffuser, but I find I haven't been needing the diffuser, but that's something you could probably do yourself if you really wanted to. But really a good setup, very powerful, and then it's modular and can break down and be used later on, because these two then get used in reception, in event, where I can then go and put it on single S-type stands. And yeah, just incredibly well thought out, and really, really happy with that. So what's really cool about this is it's nice and compact when you take the two flashes off. Obviously, I try and carry as much on in my camera bag as possible on the plane, and not put anything into the hole that I really need on the shoot. So this is something that would go in my bag with my clothes, because it's too big to go in my camera bag. This would. Now, what I did was, as I would normally take these bulbs out and stick them back into this, which is the bare bulb holder for the single flash, and then get the bulb protectors. But what I find is a bit of a mission that just to keep the bulb in there, I went and bought this. Now this is not really actually made for this, but it is made for the Bowens adapter. So it clicks in, and then it protects protects whatever is inside. But because of this design, this sits very proud. It sits a bit higher than normal. That this doesn't really work with it. So what I had to do is I had to go take a Dremel, do a bit of a square hole in the top there, and what you'll find is that I click it in, the bulb sticks out slightly proud, but I'm fully protected all the way around, and those bulbs are really nice and snug inside there. This goes in my bag, and there's no issue, and I never have to take the bulbs out, because when I do get to the reception later on, I'm using Fresnel, I'm not using bare bulb. So really cool to know that this stays as is the whole day, and you don't have to change that. That's, or at least for my setup. All right, most of you know this adapter. I think it's called the S-type Bones adapter. Okay, it's got the same fitting as what would take this reflector here and different types of modifiers that Godox makes. But it's really geared up to to a flash system that the modifier attaches to the flash. Now, let me explain this to you. So if I'm going to stick this through here, and by the way, the AD200 doesn't really slip in here very easily. It requires a little bit of force to go in here, and that's a little bit of a concern, to be perfectly honest, is that I don't think it was designed for this, but you can get it in there. So if I was to say stick the Fresnel head on here, the modifier has to be attached to this. It cannot be attached to that. And I'll give you the reason why. Is if you're using a bare bulb flash, for example, when you fire it off, a lot of the light is lost through the back of the holder, the flash holder, because the actual modifier is attached to the main head, and all that light projects out, but a lot of it goes backwards. Where like with the B2, it's a totally different setup. The B2 has got a sealed setup. It's got a reflective surface, so all the light is being pushed forward. Very clever. Thanks so much, guys. Really appreciate you following my videos. I hope to get more content out to you soon. I've got a plan going forward with some more tutorials, maybe get out and shoot a bit more, share my experiences with you guys. And yeah, please subscribe, those who haven't subscribed. You know, your feedback's very important to me, so I know that I'm going in the right direction for you guys and I'm helping you. Just an example, I've just purchased the GNAR box, which is and a lot of people are talking about it, and I know there's a lot of reviews out there. I purchased it for a slightly different reason than I think it was made for, but I'll discuss that in the next video as well. And yeah, thanks again, God bless, and I'll see you soon.